Hey friends, welcome back to another Freebie Friday. This Friday is a little bit different because instead of doing a free pattern, I'm actually going to be doing my own kind of free tutorial for a Kindle cover. It's something that in our Facebook group, some people have requested, and it's something that I actually need myself. So I thought it would be a great project to just kind of step out on my own and do my own tutorial for. So this is going to be super easy. It's really easy to customize to the e-reader that you're using. So let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is the basic materials. You're going to need, you're going to want your e-reader so that you can use it to kind of check things as you go to make sure that it's just right to what you want. So make sure you have that on hand. You're also going to want to have the basic scissors, all that stuff, and a ruler. That's going to be super important to have. Your the ruler and just everything else. All right, so let's get right into these pieces. You're going to need some padding for the inside. I used some foam, some pellon foam that I had left over from another bag tutorial. You can use the foam, you could use anything you want. You just want something that's going to give it a little bit of sturdiness to it. So if you don't have foam on hand, no worries. If you have interfacing, grab some interfacing and grab just some like scrap fabrics. Fleece works good. Flannel, felt, anything that isn't stretchy, and then you're going to want some heavy interfacing because you just want to give it a little bit, you want to give it a lot of stability because you don't want it flapping around and being too crazy. I did notice that the padding was, I think, just a little too soft for what I want, but it is nice and thick, so it'll protect the Kindle if I drop it or anything. So if you don't have it, what you're going to want to do, if you don't have padding, you're going to want to lay your interfacing down. It does not need to be sew-in. If you have sew-in, great. You're going to lay it down. You're going to put your other fabrics on top of that, and then you're just going to quilt it together. So I would sew around the outsides, and then you're just going to sew some lines along, top to bottom, left to right. Don't mind me, I had to grab my notes out so I can make sure I was telling you the right things. So yeah, we're just going to want to make sure that you have something that's a little bit thick, top to bottom, left to right, quilt it in so that it's got stability and it's firm. So once you have your padding ready, you're going to want to make sure that it's 8 by 11 1/4. We're going to trim that up later, but then you're going to need your main fabric for your cover. This piece you want to be 9 1/4 by 12 1/4, and then you're going to want some interfacing that is a piece that is 8 by 11.25 inches, so 8 by 11 1/4 inches. This is just lightweight iron-on interfacing. Then you're going to need 2 inside pieces that are 6.5 by 9 1/4 each. These pieces are going to kind of layer on top of each other to do like a French seam pillowcase. And then you're going to want elastic, a 1/4 inch elastic, about 25 inches, give or take. I didn't have 1/4 inch, but I did have this really pretty fold over elastic. So what I did is I just folded it over and then stitched right along the edge to give me my 1/4 inch elastic, and it worked perfect, and it's cute and I love it. So again, just use what you have on hand. If you don't have these materials, you can still make this Kindle cover really easily, just using what you have. Okay. So now that we've got our foam piece ready, what we're going to do is we're just going to round out those corners a little bit. You don't have to do this part if you don't want to, especially because later we're going to be trimming up the foam to fit inside the case a little bit better. So you can totally skip this part if you're like, whatever. Or if you want to have more of the shape right away, go ahead and cut those corners. Just round them out a little bit so it looks more like the Kindle, and it's just prettier. Okay, now that those corners are rounded off, you can kind of just put your Kindle on to see if you like the look of it. Again, we're going to be changing it later, so it doesn't really matter. Go ahead and put that aside and grab your main fabric, so the outer fabric. And what we're going to do here is we're going to just put that interfacing on the wrong side of your outer fabric. It's going to give your fabric, again, some more stability, a little bit more firmness so it's not floppy. So with iron-on interfacing, there's a smooth side and a bumpy side. The bumpy side is going to go onto the wrong side of your fabric, and then we're just going to iron that on, and that's going to attach that to the fabric so it won't come apart. Okay, now that we have our interfacing on our outer piece, so that on the wrong side of our outer piece, we're going to just set that aside for now. Again, it gives it a little bit more stability, a little bit more oomph to it. So let's set that aside and grab out one of our inner pocket piece, or one of our inner pieces. For this, there's a couple ways you could do this. You can lay your Kindle on the fabric, and using a heat erasing pen, just trace around your Kindle, and this will give you the shape it'll help you place those elastics later. You want to just make sure the Kindle's in the middle of the fabric, your fabric piece, and then just trace it around. Now when you go to lay your elastic out, you're going to be able to see where your Kindle is, because you want it to cover the corners but not cover the screen. So what I found worked best for mine is if for the top, I did just 3 inches down and 3 inches across. So a 3x3 square, and then I just mark it. That gave me some good stability. That gave me some good hold with my elastic. And then I cut my elastic pieces at 4 inches. I wish that I would have cut them slightly smaller. So if I would have done 3x3 and then cut my elastic at probably a 3.5 inch instead of 4 inch, so that it would have been a little bit tighter, if I would have stretched it a little bit versus just having it plain. But 4 inches worked great. It just gave it a little bit more leeway than I would want. So I would either move it up so that it's 2.5 inches by 3 inches, or 2.5 by 2.5, or less. Just play around with it with your e-reader and see what you like best. But I did like the 3 inches by 3 inches. And then for the bottom, I did it slightly different. I started with 3 inches by 3 inches, and then I laid my elastic on there and was like, no, I don't think I love it. Again, I keep bringing my e-reader over and my Kindle over just so that I can double check that I'm not covering anything I don't want to cover. So I started with 3 inches by 3 inches, and I didn't love it, so I ended up moving it to about 3.5 inches by 3 inches, and I did like that a little bit more. Again, I think it probably could have been a little bit smaller. The 4-inch elastic, I think, was just a little too, there was just a little bit too much give. They're just a little too long. But it does work. It doesn't cover the screen. It holds it in great. It just isn't super firm, I guess I would say. So I would play around with the elastic part of this, but this does work if you're just like wanting to get something done quickly. So once I have my elastic measured out to where I want it to be, I'm just going to clip it in place so that it doesn't move. I did mark it just in case. But I do want to clip it. And then what we're going to do after we clip it in place is we're then going to go over to the machine and we're going to just baste it on there. Usually I don't do basting, but with this, I did want to baste it again. I did want to baste it because it's going to have a lot of movement to it. It's going to have a lot of pull. It's going to have a lot of jerking on it. So the more I stitch it in place, the more stable that's going to be, the less it's going to pull out. Another important thing when you're attaching the elastic is make sure it doesn't get twisted or wonky at all, because you don't want wonky elastic. But Okay, so now that we've got it all figured out, we're just going to go over to the machine and baste it in. Okay, now that our elastic is basted in, I'm going to take my other piece, my other inside piece, and what we're going to do is we're just going to fold it over so that fold it so wrong sides together, 1/4 inch. You can finger press this, you can use an iron. If you use an iron, don't use it on your cutting mat, it's not good. This iron's not turned on. But you just want to give it kind of a little bit of a memory hem. It's going to help later when we go to attach the pieces, but you do want to make sure it stays nice and folded. All right, now we're going to take our outer piece again, and what we're going to do is just flip it over, and we're going to add the remaining elastic after we cut those little bits off of that 25 inch to the back of it so that it creates like a closure. So 1.5 inches from the left side, we're going to attach this bit of elastic. Mine here is a little small. You want to make sure that it's like either to the raw edges or 1/4 inch at most away from the raw edges. Mine, it was just too small because cutting that 4 inches out of the elastic was a little bit too much. I should have only cut probably 3.5 to 3 inches. But so make sure that you keep it at that length, and then we're going to go ahead and or that you keep it so that it goes all the way across, and we're just going to again baste it to the front of our tablet cover. Okay, now that all the elastic is basted onto our pieces, we're going to take the piece with the fold, so the piece that doesn't, our inner piece that doesn't have the elastic on it but the fold, and we're going to put it right sides together. So your flap, your fold, should be facing up. And then on top, and we're going to put that on the right side. And then on the left side, we are going to add the piece with the elastic. Now, if you did different for top and bottom, make sure that the top of your elastic is at the top and the bottom is at the bottom. So what we're going to do then is that's going to lay on top of the piece, the outer piece, and then it's also going to overlap the piece, the fold a little bit. You want to make sure that it does overlap the fold by like 1/4 to 1/2 inch, because it's going to create a pocket here after we sew it together. And we want to make sure that when we close that pocket up, that the raw edge is in. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and 1/2 inch seam allowance, so all the way around the outside of this. Okay, now that we sewed all the way around using 1/2 inch seam allowance, we're just going to flip it over and we are going to turn it inside out or right sides out using that pocket that we created between our two inner pieces. So just flip that out. I used this cute little tag that I got from Shine Bright Label Co. to add a little touch of something special. All right, we need to get those corners pushed all the way out, so I'm going to use my purple thing and just make sure they're all the way pushed out, and then when you get to the sides with the elastic, you want to make sure that they're flipped to the right side because they like to kind of go where you don't want them to. So make sure so you can see here, you want to just push those corner elastics so they're all together, and then that back elastic will be on the back. Okay, now that it's all right side out, we are just going to press it to get it to stay nice and flat for us. Okay, so here's where I was talking about at the beginning, where we're gonna have to go through and fix the foam, our middle part. Mine was just a little too big, so what I'm gonna do is I laid my tablet cover on top of the foam piece, and then again using the Frixion pen. You don't have to use that if you don't want to, because it's not going to be seen. I'm just going to trace the cover along that foam piece, the inner piece, so I know what to cut off and what it should look like, because you don't want it to be bulky inside there. So then I'm just going to trim it up so that it'll fit nice and tight in there. Okay, so once we finish trimming it all up, next what we're going to do is using the pocket flaps, we're just going to stick our inner piece inside our cover so that it goes all the way to the corners. Just feel it out. If it feels too big, take it out and trim it up some more. So then what we're going to have is, now we've got that overlap piece, that fold piece. We want to make sure it goes over those raw edges, and we're going to just sew that down. Okay, we're just going to sew right down the middle of that flap so that it closes it, and then that's going to be our tablet cover. It's all done. Here it is, our final tablet cover. Just check to make sure. So you can see here where my elastic, I think, is a little too big. And then here it looks like it bunched up, but it actually, it leveled out after I did this video, of course. It evened out, but it's great. It works awesome. I love it. It's a nice little cover for my tablet, my reader, and I absolutely love it. I hope it helps you. I hope this is a good tutorial and you are able to also make your own tablet cover. Thanks for joining me. See you next week. Bye.